Minasan, ohayou gozaimasu. Today we'll be going over 4 different rules or exceptions when converting romaji into hiragana. We will be going over the double consonant rule, double vowel rule, double O rule, and the combined characters rule. You have to pay attention to these rules when converting a romaji word into hiragana. Otherwise, it may turn into a different word, or it may sound like a different word, or it may not be a word at all. As you can see, I made another room for you guys. I really like how this one turned out, even though it may be a little bit cluttered, but I kind of like where everything is. You guys see my little grasshopper over here in the corner? So just a little note, grasshopper or those locusts, in Japanese they are called batta. And that's actually something that we'll be learning today, where you have the double consonants. Anyways, I hope that you guys all enjoyed the lesson for today. It's a lot of information, but they're all things that you need to know if you want to convert romaji words into hiragana. And the more that we learn the hiragana, the more that I want you to start focusing on just using hiragana when making sentences or writing out words instead of relying on romaji. There's been studies done where it reveals that it's best to not use romaji as much as possible and learn hiragana as quick as you can. Consider romaji like training wheels. Those are things that you kind of want to take off as soon as you can. Okay, here we go. I'll start by explaining the double consonant rule. For this rule, if there is a double consonant in a word, such as when you see 2 K's, 2 S's, 2 T's, or 2 P's in a word, and they're right next to each other, turn the first repeating consonant into a small, which is a half-sized hiragana, tsu. When writing the hiragana, tsu, it must be half-size compared to a normal hiragana. And it must be written at the bottom of your line, so it shouldn't be like floating in the middle of the word or all the way in the top. It should be on the bottom of the line, like when you're writing on a lined paper. Okay, let's go over a few examples. For this example, happa, you see that there are 2 P's and they're right next to each other. The first P has no vowel after it, but the second one does. So this is how you know that the rule needs to be applied. Since you can't find a single hiragana P in the hiragana chart, you have to use a double consonant rule. But you can find the pa in the special hiragana chart that I have provided on the Google Classroom. And you can find it here. And as I mentioned in my Zoom meeting, for these special combined or the special characters with the little things like the dakuten or the maru attached to it, it's actually just characters from the original hiragana chart. It just has something added to it. So this character, pa, is actually just a hiragana, ha, with a little circle on top called a maru or handakuten. And we'll go over that when we go over hiragana, ha through ho. It works similar to a dakuten or the chonchon, but it changes the sound in a different way. Now, let's start from the beginning of this word. Happa. You first convert the ha into hiragana. Then, since the first P is a repeating double consonant with no vowels following it, you turn this into a small tsu, like so. Then you write the hiragana pa after it. And there you go. Happa. Oh, by the way, when pronouncing words with the small tsu or the double consonants, you must pause where the small tsu is located. Most importantly, you do not ever pronounce it as a tsu. For example, for the word happa, when you use a small tsu in the middle, it will never be pronounced hatsupa. Okay, so what do you do then when you have a small tsu? For the small tsu, when you see it, you just pause at that place. So for the word happa, it should not be hapa. Okay, so I'm going to pronounce the correct way and the incorrect way to pronounce this word. Happa, happa. Okay, so you notice that for the correct way to pronounce it, for the character before the small tsu, you sort of pinch the ending of the word. So it's happa. It's kind of similar to in the Chamorro language where you have the glotta in a word. You kind of give that little pause for where the glotta is. Okay, so similar way that this works. So to wrap this up, for the double consonant rule, you must follow these few things. When you see two of the same consonants next to each other, the first one must turn into a small hiragana tsu. No matter what the repeating consonant is, it will always turn into a small tsu. So whether there are two K's, S, T's, P's, if there's two of them and they're right next to each other, the first one will always turn into a small tsu. And when pronouncing words with the small tsu in it, you will never pronounce the tsu. It will always just be a little pause where the small tsu is. Next, we'll go over the Double Vowel Rule. This one isn't as complicating, but I go over it since sometimes students will still have questions about this. For this rule, if there are two of the same vowels in a word right next to each other, the second repeating vowel is converted as is. The only exception is if there are two O's in a word. That one kind of gets complicated and we'll go over that later, so let's focus with all the other vowels for now. So here is an example. Kuki. You start with writing the ku into hiragana, like so. Then, for the repeating u, you just convert it into an u, like so. Unlike the small tsu, this will be a normal-sized hiragana. Then, you have ki at the end. When pronouncing these repeating vowels, you simply drag the vowel sound. So this would be kuki, not cookie. Again, it's important to pronounce it properly. For example, kuki means air, like the air that you breathe. And kuki means a stalk or stem, like the stem of a flower. Okay, so this rule was simple. If you have two same repeating vowels in a word, all you do is write it as is. You just convert it as is from the hiragana chart. The only exception is if there are two O's, but we'll go over that rule next. And then, when pronouncing the double vowels, you drag the repeating vowel sound. And that's it.